Francesco Rizzuto is a professor of European law at Liverpool John Moores University and joins us live now from Liverpool in the UK. Francesco, thanks so much for being with us. So, I have to just ask you, first of all, is this a case of a 79-year-old man throwing his toys because he isn't getting what he wants?
Good evening. That's a good way of putting it. I think the Europeans called his bluff, basically, by asserting, even though with only, 30 soldiers from these countries, called his bluff, basically. And he's now, you put it, throwing his toys out of the pram. He's basically trying to bully the Europeans into submission, and he's trying to divide the Europeans. I don't actually think, on the basis of the reaction that I've seen tonight from Macron, the Swedes, the European Union, and of course the special relationship Prime Minister Starmer, I don't think that's gone down very well. The Europeans cannot afford to give in to this kind of actually blackmail.
And yes, we have seen the response from the Europeans start to trickle in. And I think Macron saying Europeans will respond in a united and coordinated manner. We've got Germany also vowing a coordinated response. But the Europeans haven't really even managed a united response so far to the Ukraine war. What kind of response do you think they can manage here? And what kind of response will cause Trump to stop?
Look, militarily, quite clearly, the Europeans are in no position to have a shooting war with the United States, nor would any European with two iotas of good sense want that. And presumably, nor would Trump, or certainly not American public opinion, as you put it. However, I do think that the Europeans have been clever in trying to use NATO as the umbrella to sort of say, yeah, we recognize the strategic imperative. Therefore, under the umbrella of NATO, we're going to strengthen our commitment to Greenland. But our most important response is to basically play his game. In other words, break off the agreement, the tariff agreement, which is unfavorable to the Europeans in any event, and actually impose tariffs on the Americans, which we haven't done. So, if you like, this could escalate into a trade war. But may I add, the key date is the 4th of July. He's trying to get Greenland by that date. And we're going to see lots of this kind of you do it or else approach over the coming weeks. But the Europeans must not give in.
We're seeing a new line just come in now as you're speaking, Francesco. The EU ambassadors have been summoned for an emergency meeting in Brussels on Sunday on Greenland to respond to these Trump tariff threats. It's talking about, defending international law, though. How much weight does that hold? It's difficult to even say that, really, but we've seen the US intervention in Venezuela, pulling back support for UN bodies. Yeah. Is international law still something that can be relied on?
Well, certainly not in Washington and certainly not in Moscow. In Peking or Beijing when it suits them, but in Brussels and in European capitals, it is something worth preserving. Why? Because it's a way of protecting our European interests. So we must maintain our position in defending our values and defending our interests. And this is absolutely crucial. Otherwise, we're basically giving in to banditry, or as Macron said the other day, neocolonialism. Not just on the part of Moscow, vis-a-vis the old parts of the Soviet Union, ex-Soviet Union, and now the United States trying to reassert doctrines that date 200 years, and actually trying to get hold of Greenland, forgetting, of course, the wishes of the Greenlanders, let alone the Danes or the Europeans. They don't want to be part of the United States. So international law the principles of national sovereignty, the principles of respecting the will of the people remain very important, even if only the Europeans, with one or two allies like Canada, perhaps Japan, South Korea, and Australia and New Zealand. But I'm sure lots of other states will want to get on that bandwagon, i.e., states who don't have the power of the United States in particular will want to preserve this idea.
We'll be watching very closely how this develops. Francesco Rizzuto, Professor of European Law at Liverpool John Moores University. Thanks so much for your time.